very much, Liz, and thank you all for coming along to this important occasion when a book of great nobility and quality is going to be launched. I had the great blessing of being brought up in the Sydney Diocese of the Anglican Church. And I know it is extremely irritating if there are any spies from the Archbishop here. Very irritating to them to declare that you're quite comfortable in the Anglican Diocese of Sydney. It is a very Protestant diocese. It is a diocese that believes in the essential simplicity of the message of Jesus, and it is very uncomfortable in the presence of bells and smells and all the other accoutrements of Christianity. It tries to get down to the essence of it, and if you're brought up in that version of Christianity, you are uncomfortable with other versions, just as those who are brought up in a Roman or an Orthodox or evangelical version of Christianity are going to be rather uncomfortable with mine. The basic problem with the Anglican Diocese of Sydney is that the belief in the simplicity drives those of that persuasion, along with many of the Christian faith, to go back searching in the text. And the text is the source of the belief, which is the foundation of the religion. And Keith's book is an exploration of that problem, which isn't a problem confined to Anglicans or to Christians or even to spiritual people. It is a very common problem of the people of the book, that is to say, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, because they all have to get back to a text. But as I discovered about 3 years ago, it's also true of Buddhists. The Dalai Lama and I had correspondence where I urged him to think again about something I'd seen that he'd written, and he said, "Oh, the problem is the text. The problem is the text of Scripture." And so this book, like Caesar's Gaul, is divided into 3 parts. The first part, which is, if I can say so, Keith, a very trendy way to write a book, it is an introduction which gives a human face to the book, so that it isn't talking up there in the clouds, but is bringing the issues which are going to be encountered in the book down to ordinary folks. The opening of the book begins with a mother's story and a father's story. And these are the stories of a mother of a gay son and a father of a gay son, and the interesting but different reactions they had to the discovery of their son's sexuality and his orientation. They suspected, because parents always know these things, that their son was gay. But then he suddenly delivered a beautiful young woman and brought her home, and they were so relieved, and they thought, we were wrong, and he's not gay after all, and he's going to marry this lovely lady and fulfill our dreams. Unfortunately, that didn't last long, because he had sufficient integrity to call it off. And then came the struggle, and the struggle was for people who had been brought up in a religious tradition of Christianity. How can we face this crisis that our son, whom we love, of course, is effectively defying Scripture. The second part of the book is a confrontation of the problem of the text and of the principle of inerrancy. And inerrancy of Scripture is what the former Archbishop Peter Jensen goes around the world teaching. Now, Peter Jensen's a very nice man, and he is a church historian, and I'm very interested in the history of the Anglican Church, and I have nothing against him, but I think he's wrong in asserting that every word in the Bible is inerrant, that you just have to accept everything that is written literally. And that's what the second part of the book is about. So Keith takes this to pieces, and I think it's a marvellous treatment of why inerrancy, according to the text of an ancient text, is really not a sensible way to approach biblical interpretation. And then there's the third part of the book, with ask the question, okay, we've got to this point, what do we now do and where do we go? And this is tackled in the third part by a number of factual examinations of what has happened in our world in religions. So isn't that an interesting structure of the book and an interesting presentation of really important ideas? The human side of it, to soften us up and to realise this is really a painful business. The issue of inerrancy, and then if we abandon that, what we put in its place and what will the consequences of that be for our churches and our beliefs. And this is why this is really a very important book. The big problem for the inerrant brigade is that we now have a lot and a growing amount of scientific knowledge about sexual orientation and gender identity. It just is part of scientific reality. That's why a lot of young people just simply cannot take seriously the attacks on gays, and they're right. But the churches can take one of two responses, either to hang in there or to try to change and accommodate and find as a guiding star the love of one another and the love of God. There should be more people who come forward and talk about these things and talk to them about it, because the beginning of wisdom is learning about somebody who is really being hurt by what is being done by religion, as the son of the mother and the father were in the beginning of this book. So I, the best and most famous book launcher in the nation, have great pleasure in launching Faith Without Fear by Keith Mascord, with a great rainbow across the front of the page. Thank you.